And though they haven't done anything with it, I'm going to show you in a little bit that they had what happened with Jehu at that corner. I want to get a stone here that I can use to draw something. So this was the outside. This is the only city where we found, and you can't tell now, but you can see over there where they had dug out a canal out of bedrock. And every time we looked all the way around, the backside didn't have any, that fell into the desert. So no other city in the whole country had a canal out of the bedrock found. And the unique thing, of course, was the corner here, which is what is described in 9th chapter. So let's go on there. They've put in a sunshade since I've been here. It is a beautiful view. Go the walk is easier, I guess. You can kind of gather around. Mount Gilboa is over this way, the top mountain. And that's the base of which where the spring of Ein Harod comes, and that was the spring that Gideon used to his men to drink. Here is the corner wall. It goes down to the valley, and of course it's all grass grown now. But one of the unique things, I know many of you can't see this, but here's a normal corner, like this. And the tower would normally be here. But this tower was big and actually was this way, clear out, clear over, and back again. So that gave them access to the exterior beyond the wall, and that's where the man was standing. And what they saw from here was that huge plume of dust that Jehu's chariot was making. He was known by being a furious chariot driver. Mother let me use our car. My father was at work, which was a 36 Chevy. But I loaded it with students, and I got 5 students in, and I wanted to show my ability to squeal the wheels around the corner. And I kind of misjudged it and hit that iron abutment right on the corner where water goes under, and bang, bang, 2 tires blown out just like that. My father, if he had ever known about it, would have tanned the rear part of my anatomy below the belt with his razor strap. But Mother covered for me and had the 2 tires vulcanized, but You drove like Jehu. And, you know, it's interesting, and I talked to students about it. I wanted everybody to see me. And so I wanted to attention, and that it didn't go well, obviously. But, when I hear music coming from a room a block away, I say, well, welcome to hearing aids, whoever you are, because I've got an article that audiologists are saying we're getting young people now losing their hearing because too loud of music and the earplugs and all of that loud. They don't know it's loud because slowly they're losing the hearing. And then I'm sitting at 38th Street and Washington waiting for the light, and so help me, I thought my transmission had dropped out. And then I look, and here's a guy turning left, hip-hopping in his car and playing the music so loud, I thought my country and my car was in a mess. And it's amazing what we do to draw attention to ourselves, especially when you're teenagers. So we must avoid that. Well, so Jehu comes, and he kills both kings of both kingdoms, and the time is 841, and Jezebel is killed. Athaliah was killed when her grandson, that's in Judah, brought on the throne, and Josiah came out from hiding, and then she was murdered by order of Jehoiada the high priest. But Jehu came this way, he came up the hill, and now Naboth owned a vineyard outside the wall, next to the wall, Naboth. And so Naboth wanted that piece of, Ahab wanted that piece of property, and he went to him and he said, look, I would like your vineyard. I will give you a better piece of land. I want this one because it's next to the palace, or I will give you the price you ask. No, it's in my whole family long ago. I don't want it. So he goes to the palace, and he's all teary-eyed or whatever. He didn't get that property, and Jezebel comes in. What's the matter with you? Well, I wanted that property that Ahab has. He wouldn't sell it to me.
Naboth has.
Well, are you king or not?
Naboth has, not Ahab has. Sorry.
Well, she's right, whatever it is. I'm just telling the story. You got to translate. I knew it. I wanted to see if you could catch it. You passed my test. Yeah. You got it. And so she says, I'll get it for you. And she gets two men who are willing to perjure themselves and lie and say, I heard him curse God and the king. And so they kill him. And then Jezebel goes back and says, well, you wanted that vineyard. Go ahead, it's yours. And while he's inspecting the vineyard, Elijah comes back from Mount Sinai. Is that you troubler of Israel? I'm not the troubler of Israel, you are. And therefore, you will die. The dogs will lick your blood out of your chariot, and you will die without a burial, and no one will know where it was. And so dogs ate Jezebel, and of course the manure couldn't be identified as hers at all. Well, one of the amazing things is that Elijah was so discouraged, he left Jezreel, he left Mount Carmel after that dramatic demonstration by God, bringing rain that they couldn't. And Jezebel gets there, or was there. She wouldn't let her 450 prophets of Asherah, the mother of Baal, go to that demonstration. And when Ahab gets there on foot, because there had to be a rainstorm, all the chariots were stuck, she says, if he hasn't gone this time tomorrow, I'll kill him. Well, Elijah immediately left, not realizing that if she wanted him dead, she would have sent an assassin. And so when it took him 40 days to get there, so discouraged, he wanted to die, got to Beersheba. The Lord sent an angel to encourage him. He got there and slept all night in the cave. And so the next morning, he hears a still small voice whisper in his ear, Elijah, what are you doing here? I like it in Hebrew, in the sound of thin silence. He said, "Well, Elijah, what are you doing here?" God is with us in our caves of despair. I mean, he just couldn't put it together. He was so discouraged that he thought he was going to get killed, and she would have, if she wanted, she wanted exactly what he did. And so he takes Elijah out and demonstrates by a wind, and the wind was so big that it caused rocks to fall. God wasn't in the wind. He sent an earthquake. God wasn't in the earthquake. And he sent a fire. That was a lightning strike. And that lightning strike was what happened because, you see, Baal believed that, they believed Baal controlled lightning. And I can guarantee you it was September, October when Elijah told them, we're going to have a contest on Mount Carmel. But to focus on Elijah, one of the most godly men, realize that God isn't outside. Come on, get out of that cave despair. Come on, we've got job to do. He's in the cave of despair with us and saying, come on, I'm with you here. Let's get back at the task. So it's so moving to me to talk about God whispering in the sound of thin silence. So this is where it happened. Now that's the Jezreel spring, right down where you see those trees. And Saul took his army down to that spot because the Assyrians, the Philistines are coming from this direction. And of course Mount is between two, and at Beit Shan, which we went by, the Philistines are controlling that. So what they want to do is join this up. So what he does, he's told about this witch of Endor. Now Saul has put them to death because he's ruled against it. There can be no stargazers, palm readers, crystal balls. But finally he's so desperate. Samuel is dead. He doesn't know what to do. And he knows the battle is going to be engaged tomorrow. And so they tell him the witch of Endor is over there. And he has to go now stealthily because there's got to be Philistine forward troops up here, spies, Philistine troops coming this way. And if they're joining up, they're going to cut Saul's kingdom half in two. And he's desperate. So they convince him that there is a witch. Well, he has to disguise himself because he was opposed to witchery. And so he does. Now, I think that's 6 miles to the other side. The witch of Endor would be across the hill. And he stealthily goes with his men all the way through the valley, in dark. I don't even think the moon would have been shining. And then he goes to the other side, and of course she wants to know, why are you here? Well, I want you to bring up somebody from the dead. Oh, I can't do that. King Saul won't allow it. And then she must have known by his height that that's Saul. Oh, you're King Saul. That's all right, ma'am. Don't worry. Well, who do you want me to bring up? I want you to bring up Samuel, the prophet. And she screams, ah! Now, if she was the source of Samuel coming, she would have said, okay, here he is. But she sees the vision, Samuel doesn't. And so I think it's, Saul doesn't. And so she didn't have anything to do with it. It was the Lord giving the vision. And then he hears in the vision that Samuel, at least to his ears, why did you bring me up from the dead? Because I've checked the Urim and Thummim. Those were the 2 stones inside the breastplate that were considered by Jews the yes-no stone. He's checked them. They almost interpret it like a pinball machine. Will Judah go up? Judah's one of the lights here, one of these precious stones that represent Judah. Yes, they'll go up. So they say, here's the no stone, here's the yes stone. So this one to light up Judah, yes or no. But I've consulted that. We don't know how they were used. And you're dead, and I don't know what to do. Well, tomorrow you will be with me. So now he is up there. He faints. And she convinces, they get him awake. They convince him, you need to eat. She kills a fatted calf. She butchers the fatted calf. She prepares all of the food. Another hour. And so he eats. Finally, he didn't want to. And now he's got to walk back. I would interpret that he didn't sleep a wink all night. And so here is his army, and he retreats he's up Mount Gilboa, which is over here. So at the close of the period of the day, he is retreating up, and the Philistines have wounded him, killed Jonathan and wounded him. And so he's wounded, and so he says to his armor bearer, "Thrust me through so they won't mar my body." And so from that point on, of course, that ended the dynasty of Saul, except that his son Ishbosheth followed. So I wanted you to see where it was. Now, over here on the left is the village of Shunem. And when David was old, very old, he couldn't warm himself. Read that in 2 Kings. And so his advisors say, let's pile quilts on him so he can keep warm. But that didn't work. And so finally they get together and they say, let's have a Miss Israel contest, and let's check throughout the country to find the most beautiful virgin, Miss Israel. They found her there. Her name was Abishag. And she's a beautiful young virgin woman. So they bring her to the King David, and she tries to warm him. Some hot water bottle, huh? But the whole thing is this: when kings could no longer procreate, they got to give up the kingdom. David wanted to hang on to it, and so she becomes one of his wives, but she couldn't warm him. So immediately Adonijah is the one who goes and crowns be king. And so that was what it was all about. Well, she came from that village, and it was the one where Elisha, he would make trips from Jericho all the way over to Mount Carmel, and the wealthy couple is where she was barren, and this man was quite a farmer, and Elisha would find in their house a roof place where he could live on the roof, and they lighted a candle and provided a table for him. Well, Gehazi, his assistant, one day he says, we need to thank her. How would we do it? Well, she's barren. And he said, well, you tell her this time next year she'll have a son. The son was born. His father has him out in the field, and he has a sunstroke, as I would count it to be. And the mother, her husband brought her, and she walks all the way over to Mount Carmel. Gehazi see them coming, and they appeal to Elijah. He gives to Gehazi his stick and says, lay this on the child. We don't know where it was, but of course Elisha raised that boy from the dead by laying over his body and breathing into his mouth. And that was one of the many miracles that happened to Elisha. But there you have it, why this was so important in the Bible and what occurred at that time. Okay, I think we're ready.